Okay, we finally have arrived. We've got all of our new fabric pieces sewn and cut out and ready to go. And so now we can finally put all of these pieces back on the chair. Now, as I mentioned before, there's a couple tools that we can use for this. I've got my little hand stapler here to load the staples. There's just a release. I should probably watch what I'm doing. You push in, lower, and take out, and you put the staples right into that little channel. And it looks like this one may be jammed. So, but I'm not going to use it today. This one will work fine with a small project, but mine tends to jam if I use it for too much. And it just can kind of put some wear and tear on my hands and can just get frustrating. So I'm going to use my air compressor and my power stapler. Now with my air compressor, there's like a tank pressure, there's a tool pressure. I'll show you. Okay, so right here, there's these pressure gauges that tell us what the pressure is. So I've already pressurized my tank, which is at about 110 PSI. And my tool pressure right now is set to 0, but it can go up to whatever the pressure of the tank is. Now, it's important that we set the pressure to a spot that is strong enough to go through the wood of the chair, but not so strong that it will punch through the fabric, because we need it to hold it in place. So we need it to stop just shy of going through the fabric, because it absolutely will. I find that with most of my projects, right about at 75 PSI is kind of the sweet spot for upholstery for me. But I will work on that and adjust as needed and see where we end up. Now, this is a power tool that we're working with. So of course there are safety features and safety measures to take into account. That is not staying. There we go. Okay, so there, just like with the hand stapler, there is a release back here on the cartridge. Okay, it pulls out, and my staples are going to fit for this particular brand. I've got a row of my staples, not too deep to go too far through the wood. And the head is not very wide, but that's just how it is with these. So there's a plate that's right here that the staples just kind of rest right on top of, okay? And then that gets pushed in and popped into place. Now, it's important that as you're loading your staple gun, do not have it plugged in. I got the hose coming from my air compressor, and as long as this guy is not hooked into it, there's no pressure. I'll pull the trigger and nothing will happen. All right, so I wanna make sure that as I set up, just to be safe, I'm not plugged in. Now, there's another safety feature that this trigger will actually not pull until this plate on the nozzle is completely pulled back, okay? So I can't actually staple anything. I'm only using my hand as an example because I'm not plugged in. I would not do this otherwise. You gotta make sure that you have that completely compressed before you pull the trigger, and then pop, the staple will go in. All right, so now that I'm loaded, I'm going to go ahead and attach the hose. I slide this plate back and push it in, and did you hear that little spit of air? Now my gun is pressurized. Okay, again, if I pull the trigger, nothing's gonna happen. Now I've got my staple gun plugged in. Now you see here's the wood of the chair. I'm gonna do a sample punch. So again, once I pull the trigger, it's not gonna do anything, but once I push, there it goes. Okay, and you can kind of see where that little one went in. Now it's a little bit deeper than I might like it, but since that is just up against the wood, I'd like to think that the fabric is gonna slow it down just a bit. Okay, we can actually test this because I've got some of this fabric over here that is still on the chair. Okay, so I'm gonna just test the pressure. I'm gonna take a piece of this and punch it through. And check out that staple. It hasn't gone through the fabric, like the fabric is actually holding, it's not torn through, so that is right at the pressure that I want it to be at. If it ends up punching through, that's not the pressure I want, I need to reduce it. And if it ends up sticking out of the wood, then your pressure is too low and you'll need to increase. All right, so we are ready to go. Now, as I'm working on this, again, we're gonna go in reverse of what we pulled everything apart. So I'm going to fasten the arms first, because that was the last bit that we took off, and then the seat next. And I find that it's easier to get in these crevices with the arms if this part is not in place yet. And then the back, and then the sides, the wings, and the very back of it will be the last piece. Here we go. All right, we're getting into the finishing touches of this chair, and it's important that we do everything in order to make sure that everything has a finished edge. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the piping that I took off of the back of the top of the chair, top and back. Now I'm going to put this down first, and I want the nice edge to be up so that that is what ends up showing when all is said and done. I'm going to take it all the way to the edge, and I'm going to staple just below the line, my thread line. I'm going to go just below my thread line, and I'm going to pull it as I go, and I am going to use a lot of staples so that it is secure and it's not going to move. And I'm going to check. I also want to make sure that I'm feeling with my fingers as I go to make sure that there is wood underneath so that I get it, so that my staples aren't going in the soft places where they should not be. Okay, I'm going to turn my chair a little bit so that I can see what I'm doing and get around here. And I really want to make sure that it's coming across pretty straight. Okay. Now, for this layer of piping, I'm not going to need too many staples because I'm going to come back around when I attach the back and add even more staples. So it doesn't have to be a whole lot. I'm just trying to get it straight and in position. Okay, looking pretty decent, pretty even, I think, I hope. I guess we will just have to see. All right, so now this left wing fabric, I need to refasten. And I'm gonna go ahead and get it in its place and then just fold it downward so that it doesn't get in the way of bringing the piping all the way around. And that is just a perfect fit right there. Okay, so making sure that we're straight. I'm gonna continue along this curve and get it secure where I want it to be. Okay, so now we've got the piping on the back. I might need to adjust that a little bit. Okay, how's that look? Not bad? Not bad. All right, so the next thing that needs to go on now, the very back of the chair is the very last piece. So what needs to come on next are these wings. Okay, so we've got the fabric here that gives structure for the batting. I just had the batting, here we go. And this is my right wing. I've got them labeled. So I'm gonna just kind of gently place that here, just for size measurement. All right, and then I've got the fabric piece that needs to cover. Okay, so that's what we want it to look like. Now, we want this edge to be hidden, and we want that piping to create this nice clean edge. So in order to get that look that we need, I need to flip this upside down and staple this down like right in there, right in the piping, okay? Now, the cardboard pieces that we took out during demolition, they are still kind of intact. So I'm gonna try to reuse as many as possible. Those that did not survive, I'm just gonna recut. It's just cardboard, and that's pretty easy to acquire. All right, so I'm going to put that cardboard strip right in there. And it's basically gonna make it so that when you fold it over, it's just gonna have a really nice and straight edge. So, there we go. Now, again, I'm not doing too many staples right now because when I fasten the batting, I'm going to be using more staples. Just a few strategically placed ones. And then more for the batting. Okay, so the batting is secure, and now you see when I fold over this fabric, it has this nice clean edge, just like so. Now on the edge here, this is where the double piping got glued down, so I'm not terribly worried about that finished edge because that piping will come in its time. So I'm just gonna staple down this edge right into the groove of the wood where it came from. And I'm gonna kind of pull it over and down as I go so that it has a nice, taut, firm finish. Now, I'm not gonna fasten the back quite yet, because I just wanna make sure that all of my other pieces fit. Now, I'm going to need to bend or fold this edge in because of just how the piping and everything, and I think I'm gonna leave this open so that when I bring the double piping in, I can tuck it under and just have a nice finished edge there. And then I'll staple this under here. So my next step would be the double piping on the wing. After this, I'm gonna do the side of the chair in the same manner, add the double piping there, and we'll add the skirt in the front, and then the piping all around the bottom. No, piping all around the bottom is after the back. So I'll do the back and then the piping all around the bottom. Re-secure the black piece of fabric and then we'll be done. We're getting really close. All right, we're reaching the end of our project here. I've attached the fabric to the back and the foam and the batting to the top. But in order to finish it, I've got to get this edge finished. Before we had ripped out these metal strips that hold it into a folded edge. So we're gonna reattach those. But before we put this back on, we need to put the piping on first so that it is sticking out. So we're going to get this situated in here. And I'm just gonna staple it right on down the line. Sure that it's right on the edge of the wood, right on the corner of this chair. I'm going to take it all the way down and probably curve it a little bit on the bottom. Make sure that it stays hidden on the edge. Okay, now I've taken my pliers and I've kind of straightened out this strip so that it's a little bit easier to work with, because when we pulled it off, bent it up a lot. So we're going to put it so that the ridged edge here, these little ridges are meant to catch the fabric. So this is the part that needs to be attached to the chair, and these ridges are going to fold over and grip the fabric. Okay, so those ridges need to bend outward so that it catches the fabric and leaves it in a folded way. So I got to make sure that it's the right way, and I'm going to put it just on the inside of the piping because I want that fabric to lay right on the inside of the piping. Now, this is a tricky bit. Do you see these little holes? This is what I have to work with and put staples in. In my power stapler, my staples are not wide enough to straddle the hole in the bracket. So for this purpose, I'm going to use my hand stapler. Okay, it's got a wider staple, and it also is going to help me aim a little bit more carefully. Now, if you can see, I kind of look at my stapler and see where the staples are actually going to come out, and I try to line up that point with the hole. And I don't always make it, but I try, and after a while I do all right. So I'm going to put this in here. The first one is like a half a bracket, so I'm just going to try to straddle the whole bracket and get that secure. Okay, so there I am. Now that could just slip right out because it's not holding onto a hole, but at least it's going to keep it anchored there. So I line up my stapler with that hole and try to make sure that that edge is on the other side of the staple is on the other side of that bracket. And I'm going to staple this way all the way down the line. Okay. Now, staples don't go through metal very well, so I have to be really careful to get it in that hole. Oh, there, I missed one. So I've got my pliers nearby, or I did. And this one hit the metal, so it did not go through. So I'm gonna have to try that one again. My stapler will jam up every now and then, but if I just pull the handle out, then I'm good to go. All right, so I've got the strip on, and now I get to fold it in. Now this is kind of a delicate process, but we're just gonna fold the batting, which is kind of messy, fold the batting into it, and I'm gonna stretch it all the way down to the end, and I'm gonna try as much as I can to get some of this batting hooked in. But what I really need to hook in is the fabric itself. Okay, so I need to start at the top of the chair and making sure that the corners are all folded in. I'm gonna tuck that into the bracket and then just ever so gently fold down those metal brackets. Now, this isn't perfect. So I'm gonna just add a couple of extra staples to secure it a little bit more. Make sure that I'm getting where I need to be. Okay, so I'm gonna fold the fabric in as much as possible, and then bring those brackets in and folding them. Okay, so that it just kind of stays right up against that piping. All right, now I will use my hammer. I brought a hammer out to just lightly tap that bracket so that it gets really nice and flat. I'm gonna try to stretch it out as much as I can as I go, but when I get to the bottom, I will be stapling this and that'll just pull it nice and tight. So I'm gonna work that with my fingers all the way down. When I'm done with this step, I'm going to add the piping and the black fabric to the bottom, and we'll be all done.